Here we have our character broadsheets. We make references to characters past and have invited characters from previous campaigns into the current runs, but with no context, the legend that many of these characters have become would be lost to time. I wanted to take some time to talk to each player about their character that they played, to keep legends alive and possibly hold their memories hostage so that way I can leverage them against the fresh faces of our adventurers. Tonight, let's just talk about Emiko, who, yeah, that is very clearly your longest lived character. Um, she's also the only character that, one of the few characters that any of us have played that have actually gotten to level 20 without making a deal with the Lord of Lies himself. um, wow. Yeah, let's dive into that one. So, we already talked about, you know, when we started, the whole thing about like how long we've been playing together. We've already talked about that. But
Yeah.
when I said, "Hey, I think I'm ready to run," I believe that you and Kyle were going to be the only two player characters at that point, because we had kind of gotten into where Amanda was like, I don't know if I want to play anymore. The Kyle campaign's kind of left a sour taste in her mouth, and you and
Yeah.
me and Kyle and Alan at that time had kind of done this like revolving, like, well, let's play Fallout, let's play this, you know what I mean, shit like that.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, hey, I want your character to have been pulled from history as this sort of like kind of already legendary character. Do you remember what the legend was of Emiko? Like what the deed that she had done that had kind of like permeated through time? Do you remember what that was?
So originally it was going to be originally the plan was for me at least was to have Emiko at that point unnamed. It was just going to be character name here. And then eventually later on I came up with the name for Emiko Matsudaira based off of the Matsudaira clan in Japan, but Emiko is also Japanese based name. Originally I was going to make it be like she like was the last defender of a fort. And I think we settled I don't think we settled on that one, but instead, I think her great deed was even though she didn't kill Kuchiba, the red dragon, she had sliced out one of its eyes, which came back to play an important part in her role later in the story. But I think that was the great deed that she and a few other of her troop, I forgot what they were called at this point in time. I don't have my notes with, but they had gone into this dragon to like slay this gone to this mountain to slay this dragon, and she was the only one that survived. And even then, she lost her eye, but at least she got a devastating strike on the dragon as well.
Literally
So
an eye for an eye. That's right. I believe that we had kind of made it an amalgamate of both, where the Kuchiba, the Draco Lich, had sent throngs of orcs and goblins and whatnot to attack. She defended, and then mounted a rebuff, if you will, and then
yeah,
got him. He cursed her. After she had taken his eye, he took her eye for an eye, and then that was where she had been plucked out of time and thrown into the basically the modern world was pretty much
yeah,
what my campaign one had been. So you guys have been thrown into this sort of like pseudo Jetsons, like Neo New York sort of area that was where the elves had been.
yeah, which
Um,
was which was really cool idea in my opinion.
and so playing her, I like. Did you just want to be a fighter? Was it like, I don't really want to fuck with magic? Why did you make her specifically, or was it like, this is a good idea? Or how'd you come up with the concept?
That point in time, I hadn't decided if she was going to be human or not. I had come up with the idea of I wanted to play a straight fighter because, yeah, it's the most boring class, but if it's a lot of its subclasses have cool abilities, Eldritch Knight, the Battle Masters, like each of them has a unique spin to them
Samurai.
that make playing each of them different. Right before and I had settled on, I believe I had settled originally on Battle Master because I thought those maneuver dice were gonna be amazing in battle. And then literally maybe a month, not even that much before we started your campaign, another compendium came out and it had the samurai sub.
And that,
yeah, that in itself like rearranged everything because samurai subclass, all the abilities are like not too bad. And then when you're like
gaining advantage on all of your attacks, mixing that with action surge, fuck yeah, dude, that was the shit.
Yeah, like at first it was just like the normal stuff, action surge and stuff like that. But then you come into the later ability. Oh, this class is overpowered. If it was played by anyone that rolled better than I.
Yeah, all right. And to that point, that is why we do have the old saying, "Does an 8 hit?" But that's the truth, man. So Emiko was a fighter. She was a samurai subclass, and then I believe we had discussed not having healing in the group, right? And so
there came a point where we had a battle where we were all pretty badly damaged, and yeah, the topic of we need to buy a lot of potions, cool, but like I think we were in the middle of nowhere and there was nowhere to buy health potions, so it was like we do need some healing. I took one level of cleric with the idea of I'll at least get that up to level 3 so I can have life domain cleric and have a little bit extra healing buff. And then it just never the options for samurai were too good to pursue the cleric further. It was because I realized after I took life cleric, after I took one level of cleric, I realized like level 19, like I've already messed up for level 20, which was an amazing samurai build. But level 19 was like, if you die, you can come back for like you get an instant turn immediately.
Right.
All of your stuff is I believe originally it was all your stuff gets like anything that's short or long rest gets reset. So you have all your stuff on.
Yeah, you die.
You get a full turn.
I believe you interrupt. Yeah, you interrupt combat initiative, and you get your full turn. You're dead, but you get your full turn. Yeah.
And then you have 1 temp hit point until your next turn, which then you go down. Right. And I believe I haven't read it in a while, but I believe like if you do get res, then like you get a level of exhaustion, I think, or something.
Yes.
But yeah. That when I saw that, I was like, oh, there's no way I can't take that because like every campaign has a big BBEG and that's going to be monumental in defeating it. No, it wasn't.
I mean, okay, to be fair, it could have been.
It could have been a game changer, but it wasn't.
Yeah, because you essentially did fucking like 16 attacks in one turn, which I mean, you're
so in one turn.
You 8 attacks in one turn, 16 dice rolls, and what, one of them hit? 2 of them hit? None of them hit. Yeah.
And that was the reason why on the die it was an 8 with my bonus, and I was just like, does an 8 hit? Because I was like, please God, give me mercy.
Yeah, that was pretty rough.
No.
Yeah, that was pretty rough. The other thing that we had done for Emiko was that because she had taken a level of cleric, we had to figure out what god that she got her powers from. At the time, in my world, the gods were very, very involved in what a lot of people were doing, and I can't remember if it was you. Did you come up with it being Tymora, the goddess of luck?
No, originally I wanted to go with Selûnigan, but then you decided that it should be Tymora.
Right.
More so because you made it like she's prevalent in this world, as well as you've been so lucky in your encounters that why not? Like, of course she's been looking at you. You got brought to the present. You know, all of this stuff has happened to you, and you're still. why wouldn't she be looking over you? And I was like, you know what? That sounds actually pretty good. Sure, let's go with it. Better
And
than, yeah, I pray to the moon. Moon speak. Cool.
and I believe that you had a an item that we had homebrewed together. It was a D20, and it was the Timora's True Champion die, because she's the goddess of good luck and so on and so forth. And we had a whole fucking slew of things that could happen in combat as well as things that could happen out of combat. And then I think that actually came in really clutch more than a couple of times. I think there was one, if I remember correctly. Tell me if you remember this. The entire enemy party ended up essentially having Bane on them because you rolled it, and it was like you rolled like a 19 or whatever, and I was like, shit, that's really fucking good. There it was on the thing. Everybody, every enemy everybody who's an enemy to you gets Bane. She had a very interesting time with that, but she also had some very interesting relationships with the rest of her party. Do you, through Emiko's eyes, the rest of your party, how did she see, Cilia, Kaioken, Saul, fucking John Ryder, even fucking Thunderhill, the Tabaxi druid? Like, how did she see them?
At first, when it was just Cilia and Saul, she admired Cilia because she had that initiative. She, like, one of Emiko's main traits, she respected people that maintained military. And so I took that very much to heart with her character, where if people listened, or if people knew and read the tactical map in their head and did stuff the right way, or what she thought was the right way, then they're good in her books. Cilia played that to a T for most of the campaign. With Saul, immediately off the bat, the way that he just talked shit and he was completely a-hole character, it was like, there is no way that she can justify. Yep, man, he's a real dipshit, but he does damage in battle, which was the only justification for why she did it, was because when they needed to ace up their sleeves, here comes Saul with his specialized shatter that just destroys comp. And it was like, I hate him, but I gotta have him. The point where that ended was with the Frogmen, where the Frogmen village, where it was like, we've now ruined it. And that was also a little bit of metagaming on my, because you and I had been working on a quest, and I watched in slow motion as that quest just got trampled right then and there, because he's like, hey, big guy, go ahead and squash this tiny frog. Okay.
Right.
And it was just like, our contact's right there. I can see him.
Yeah, there's the finish line. We just got to get to this guy. Yep.
I don't want to be seen anymore. That week alone, I was like, I don't know if I want to play next week. But that also sealed the part where Emiko is like, I don't care how much damage you do. If you wipe out every single enemy that we ever meet, there's no coming back from that. In Emiko's eyes, because you did something to a civilian. Military never does that. Adventurers never do that. Mercenaries only do that for good pay. So,
right. Yeah. And that, from that point, it kind of seemed like Emiko was definitely she was being taken for the ride, right?
Yeah, it was the part where Emiko realized that she no longer had the working steering wheel, and the person in the passenger seat now had operable steering wheel, and it was like, oh shit.
Right. I mean, she went from being a military veteran to being wanted for war crimes, what was it? Attempted assassination on a diplomat. Then we did the heist, and then we stole the MacGuffin from the impenetrable fortress.
Yeah. With Kaioken, through Emiko's eyes, Emiko admired him just because big, strong, does damage in combat, but also listens most. But then there was a point as well where Kaioken stopped listening and more or less, I'm enjoying this roller coaster. Let's see where it goes. Arms up, screaming down the roller coaster, and Emiko's like, "Oh, this is." But like, I honestly wanted to have a subplot in there, for the most part, of like Emiko being like, "Listen, I find you attractive. You're pretty cool." And then that happened, and I was like, "All right, this is kind of done now."
Right around the time where the phylactery was blown up with the Ring of Wishes. Sure.
Maybe.
Maybe.
With John was just kind of the epitome of everything she hated, but it wasn't on the same degree as Saul. So it was like, I can stand you because you at least understand your uses and you know that you're pretty good. It's just when we're not in combat, then I need to worry about you. You're like a misbehaving teenager.
Right. It was which also was kind of interesting because you guys were the only two humans out of the whole group.
Everyone else was a different race, yeah.
Everybody else was something extra human, like superhuman, if you will. That's yeah, that happened. When you made the character, what was the plan? Did you plan out like okay, this is the fighter. I know you talked about being a cleric or whatever, but like lore wise, where did you want the story to end?
Lore wise, with classes, I wanted to be mostly cleric and like half and half, more or less. Because in her backstory, Emiko was part of the because you couldn't be in the army as a female in her country.
In
you could be in the
feudal
part of
era.
Yeah, in her area of the continent, you couldn't be part of the army unless you were, if you were female, unless you were also like a combat medic, more or less. And so I wanted it to be like she had those skills.
That's right.
Which is why, even though I didn't have cleric when we started out with, I still had the medicine skill check.
Right.
Because then she would be the best at applying potion. She would be the best at like knowing how to do these or what in the environment could. It didn't really that off because
there was
potions and we just didn't need it.
Right, because it was super high fantasy was the initial thing, and I do recall one time specifically where didn't she battle dress somebody? She like using one of John Ryder's like gunpowder charges, and then I think it was Kaioken. She fucking like
I'm pretty sure it was
said
Kaioken,
it cauterized a wound. Yeah, because she had she had a bleeding weapon, and a weapon that would inflict bleeding, and I think that somebody else that you guys had fought had and hit Kaioken, he started bleeding, so on and so forth. So I mean, it didn't end up coming up very often, but when it did, at least you had the ability to, and I think she even stabilized a couple of people that fell. I think maybe Celia fell.
That was the main reason why our powers, like I won't retcon this, because they did come in useful. You are all the way over there, and I do not want to use a dash action to come get you. I'm just going to use bonus action like healing word. Done. And then worst comes to worst, if they were close to her, cool. Lay on hands. Done. Not lay on hands.
She also had another skill set that we started to run into, but then due to the die not wanting you to be a part of that, she also had performance. And tell me about that subplot, because I remember specifically you were like, okay, here's the other thing that she likes to do. We had a bunch of downtime. I think I gave you guys like one whole month of downtime.
There was an entire month of downtime in a heavily populated city, and more or less everyone went out to go prepare for so there wasn't much left for Emiko. I was like, she's just gonna be like cooking meals for the party. Because I also figured she's from feudal times. She still knows some of these recipes. They probably still have the ingredients if they're not like fight a little. They're probably still more or less the same. You're probably going to be able to find yakisoba at the grocery. So, she'll probably find it in the city. So I was like, that's going to be the main. She's just going to be the housewife at that point. Which I was like, all right. I mean, I guess kind of defeats the original purpose behind her character, but cool. And then
I like to think of it more of den mother. But between you and Celia, you guys were both kind of co-den mothering, co-DMing, if you will.
Yeah. But there came a point where it was like, cool, next week is gonna be like your last week like it's gonna be the big week of, and I was like, I'm going to more or less co-opt 2 songs, and then I translated one of them and the other one like 2. And I was like, I'm gonna sing.
Sorry, you cut out. Say that one more time.
So there came a point where it was going to be, the next session was going to be the big downtime session. I think before that we had gone through like Celia and John and I think Soul as well, and it was mostly just magical shot. At that point I was like, cool, next week is going to be my time to I need to do something to make it taking that long for Emiko's character. And so I wrote up, I co-opted 2 songs more or less, and then like added some lyrics to a different song, and I was like, I'm gonna perform these. And then Kaioken took forever, and then Soul wanted to do something else. By the time it got to me, it was nearly the end of session. It was like 1 o'clock, and I'm like, I'm already tired. I don't want to sing. Like, I had the music on my phone and everything ready to go, and I'm like, I'm not gonna be able to do this. Can I just roll for it? Cool, roll, done, good.
Dude, it was yeah, because I think she rolled. I think she did a crit fail on her Constitution saving throw because she got shit faced, right? And then we went through like a then we went through like a whole like
down in the alley with nuts.
Yeah, like shoot, there was that whole like Prodigy like flashes of, you know, like that fucking the old video Smack My Bitch Up, where it was like flashes of this is happening and then this is happening, give me a performance check, and she's like karaoke bar travaling with a bunch of businessmen, because again it was still like modern times, shit like that, and then she ended up just fucking face down and yeah, so she
I completely forgot about.
But I think, if I'm not mistaken, that there was a point where she ended up like, what was it, wanting to go on tour. Like she had actually developed, like the performance checks actually really worked. But
no, the performance checks were like the good part of that night. That was the one time where I need this to succeed, because this would be a great thing to do in the future. And I think they did do a recording. They did like a few songs, but never like a full album. It got released. I don't know if it did mildly well or really successful, because, you know, a few months later, hey, Drea thought gone and society is collapsing all around us kind of thing happened. So I'm pretty sure that tour never happened.
Well, who knows? So that's let's see. Emiko, as far as the canon goes now, like more or less, has she died or not? Because in your world, in Far Realms, she's a character, and then in my realm, it's fuzzy. There's a statue. There used to be an iconic weapon that has since been stolen, which. Yeah. Who knows if we'll ever get to that part or not, but you know, we'll see. But like has her story ended so far? Like do you think, explaining your headcanon, which is the only canon that matters, like what is her story?
In your world, I would say that Emiko's chapter has closed. The Book of Matsudaira hasn't finished though, because she had children who had children.
Like a bunch.
Listen, I'm not saying he was like, listen, we're going to hate fuck, and you're going to put a bag on, because I want to imagine that you're okay. But
yeah, basically.
I like to imagine that's probably what happened.
There's a couple of bruised up fellas that are like...
her husband was... her husband died of broken hips a few years later, but you know, they got a decent few generations out of it. But I would say, in all seriousness, I think Emiko's chapter has closed in your but like she has children, her legacy and lineage will carry on. I don't know if her city will stand much longer from the sounds of it, but it's there right now. in Far Reaches, Emiko was. I had it in. I think I've stated before. I had it in my idea, in my head, that like these worlds that our D&D campaigns were taking place on were being monitored by the technographers, and they would go, these are some great people. Like they just like they're looking at the baseball stat card. They're going, yep, that's a great hitting average. Bring her back. Like, and then reviving genetics and all that whatever magic science stuff from 3200. We aren't even close to that yet. I'm not going to sweat the detail. But so Emiko in my campaign was going to, if you had met her where I originally wanted her to be, she would have been on Neo Vegas running the giant casino that's there. That's like multiple cities in it. And eventually I think I decided that, no, it became, originally we had a one shot way before the camp, a month or two before. And in that, each of you played different characters. Amanda's character was a hack. You had bad blood because Julian had bad blood with the hacker lover, who was Emiko's daughter, who now hates you. As well as on Julian's main ship, when the campaign started, unbeknownst to you, Amanda for now was Matsudaira's daughter. So that's how you guys landed in the Kurakawa system, that Emiko was there instead, because I was like, we're just going to copy Control X, Control V over here, whatever.
Right.
It doesn't change that much. Kaioken and them can still be in the fighting arena as like the champion, and we'll just add someone else at the cool little structural or reorganization. No big deal. Emiko still lives there in my headcanon. She's still alive. Like if we started the campaign up tomorrow, yeah, she's still gonna be there.
All right.
There's no.
All right. I know we had talked about like a few things that had happened when we were doing the redux of my campaign, when it was, or not the redux, when it was like time to sequel my world, and I was going through all of the repercussions of everything that you guys had done, and I was like, Emiko, there was a lot that she indirectly was responsible for, but we had talked about a few one shots that we were wanting to run that we just didn't end up running. But what's the thing that she did in your canon that we didn't get to see until, we likely know about, but is lost.
The big one was the big one shot idea that was going to kill Kuchuba, and whether she got her original party back or if it was going to be a bunch of different people, either or she was going to go and kill the dragon. Was so now doubly so. I think along with that, like if we ever want to do more of a political campaign, her trying to finagle peace between multiple different races to create like a secure area where would all be kind of fun, but that's also pretty boring campaign. Like I don't imagine there being, I mean, there could be a lot of like political lessons.
Speak for yourself, man. That's a fucking great campaign for me.
No, that's the thing is, you and I talking about this sounds amazing. But if I presented this to Kyle, Bruno, Dan, I'm gonna get at best mixed reactions about it. Maybe
right.
One or two will want to play. Bruno will probably just want to play because, hey, we're playing D. Dan might. Kyle probably not even going to be in for it. So,
yeah, that makes sense.
That was also another idea I had. That would be cool if I brought, seeing how I'm trying to get all the streets attached. But we also discussed that it was going to be like 100+ years since that last session, the last campaign. And I'm like, there's no way a normal, even with dragon blood in them, is going to survive. Like, and if she is, cool. You've got Granny Emiko. Hey, don't worry. I'll stab him with my halberd. I missed again, goddammit.
See, you say that, But as we know, in D&D, like, you can justify just about anything that you want to, which makes me wonder, is there
So
any chance of you playing her in the future ever again in my world?
so I mean, let's just let this out right now. If Alan dies, I've been recently watching a show where a character more or less inherits the memories and bodies they have. Um, Thinking about that, there is one character in that show that they passed along a trait in their family for generations. And I was like, and more or less it was just a battle of ego. Eventually the ego of the matrix won out. And I'm like, this is an amazing idea. As soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, that would be Emiko for sure. Like, of course Emiko would be like, no, I want to ensure my legacy lives on. So, with that in mind, Mayo had two sisters. Why would one of them not go through the whatever ritual to get Emiko's ego in them? Like, let's say a month in isolation in a room where all there is just a battle of the egos, and then Emiko's out. Especially with Celia being back now, I'm like, this would be the perfect time for her to be like, I remember your face. I don't know who you are. Oh, so this is gonna be weird, but this is my granddaughter's face, so yeah.
Right. Well,
But,
shit.
like, yeah, that's a very strong possibility, and I've definitely been thinking about that. This is an amazing, especially because I love, and the idea of going back to just a fighter samurai, I probably wouldn't do this. I'd probably choose either a different subclass, if not a different class together. But I was really disappointed that I only got to play 5.
Sorry, you cut out there for a second. You were disappointed that you got to play what?
I was disappointed that I got to play the paladin subclass for like maybe 5 sessions before Mayo was just taken. So, and
Right.
what is going to anger a mother slash grandmother more than her son slash grandson? This is a really weird family mix, but dying. Of course, there's going to be a quest for vengeance. Oaths of Vengeance Paladin for sure. And I'm
It is a good one.
this is not set in stone, but I'm like, the more and more, this is a really good idea. Emiko Matsudaira 2, whatever, name something else.
Well, you start working on that because, you know.
I'm not saying your
I
dice
mean,
but,
look, all I'm saying is if the last session was any indicator of what is possibly going to happen, who knows, man? Who knows? Yeah, I like Gaul. I like Gaul a lot, but does an 8 hit, you know? And so I think we can go ahead and call that one because it's, I mean, unless there's anything else that you wanted to, any bug that's been up your butt about Emiko, anything that you want, any frustrations you wanted to bring out, or any dreams or anything else about Emiko. What is the last little bow on this that you want to put?
So I'll say this much: even if she doesn't play a part in the current campaign of Embers, in Vigilatus, the Cyberpunk Red campaign, she might not be in direct contact with the party, but I do have her, like, keep in mind she used to own the giant casino that's now ran by who is calling herself the Queen. Of course, the Empress is going to be like, oh, that shit don't fucking fly. I don't care if I'm 80 years old, I'm coming back for my fucking power.
80 years old, right.
Hey, Grandma Emiko's coming back to whip your ass, Sonny.
I mean, that's the best part, right? Is that, like, because this all is fucking make believe, these characters can last in this bubble where they never get past whatever age you want them to be, or they can go forward or backwards, or so on and so forth.
That's the thing with the Far Reaches saga, at least, is I plan on having it be, no, age does play an important matter, because it means how much longer you have to be useful before I start going, cool, How strong are you? No, you're 65 years old. We're gonna knock a few strength points off because you're not that strong anymore. Like, I don't care how well you keep your muscle mass. There's a point where those muscles aren't gonna reduce fat. So, sorry, but like,
Yeah.
Speaking in D&D, like, yeah, I could say that Emiko is going to stay alive forever, but that's a will of the dice. So, you know.
Boy, I hope you don't leave that up to the dice.
I'm gonna be honest.
All I'm saying. Well, this is the memento mori. No, I'm kidding. All good. I like that.